Yo, what's up? Amateur Lore here. So today I wanted to make another video covering teams who almost made it to the BCS National Championship game. This is somewhat of a part 2, not really, but if you want more videos like this, check out the first video I did about teams who almost made the BCS Natty. Oh yeah, before I forget, y'all be safe out there during the holidays and make sure to just chill and spend time with family. But yeah, these videos take a while to make, so a like and a sub would be appreciated. Also, be sure to comment any teams or players or anything that you want me to cover down below. But yeah, let's get right into the video. The first team we're going to be taking a look at that I'm sure you forgot almost made it to the BCS National Championship game is the 2010 Wisconsin Badgers. Man, this is off topic, but growing up watching football in the late 2000s and 2010s, if you would have told a younger me that the Wisconsin Badgers would still not have a natty under their belt by the current year 2024, I wouldn't believe you, because growing up the Badgers were always one of those teams that I thought had a chance of winning a natty. I mean, from the year 2005 to 2017, the Badgers would have 9-10 plus win seasons and would be highly ranked most of those years and in the thick of things going into the final weeks of the season. So I think you could see why a younger me would be shocked if you told him the Badgers still haven't won a natty. Anyway, this 2010 squad was super close, and coming into the season, the Big Ten media had Wisconsin predicted to finish first in the Big Ten during their preseason predictions. I think it's safe to say that this 2010 Badger squad had a lot of hype behind them and were expected to legitimately compete for a BCS National Championship game this year. That's a short little intro, so let's take a look at some of the key figures a part of this 2010 squad. Leading the program in his 5th year up to that point was head coach Brett Bielema, and shout out to him because he had this Wisconsin Badgers offense flying, as they would average 41.5 points per game, which was best for 5th in the country. Rotating over to the quarterback position, the stud trusted to hand the ball off 40 times a game was Scott Tolzien, who would pass for just shy of 2,500 yards and throw for 16 touchdowns. Now moving over to the strong point of this offense, the running back room, we got to talk about 3 straight up beasts, starting with James White, who would rush over 1,052 yards with 14 touchdowns, the college football star Monte Ball rushing for just shy of 1,000 yards with 18 touchdowns, and to round out this 3-headed monster, John Clay, who would put up just over 1,000 yards with 14 touchdowns. Man, this running back room was stacked. For the receiving core, the team leader was All-American Lance Kendricks, who would finish the year with 663 receiving yards with 5 touchdowns. Before we move on, shout out to the NFL legend JJ Watt. He was a game wrecker on this Badger squad. Alright, so to open up the season, 12th ranked Wisconsin would have back-to-back tune-up games versus UNLV and San Jose State. The game versus UNLV was somewhat close at one point, as going into the second half the score would be 17-14, but Wisconsin would turn it up in the second half, winning the game 41-21. Their other game against San Jose State would be a little smoother, as the Badgers would win 27-14. Now sitting at 2-0, ranked 11th in the country, Wisconsin would have their first real test of the season coming up versus 2-0 Arizona State and the 24th ranked Michigan State Spartans. There was a game sandwiched in between these two matchups, but it was against the FCS opponent, and the Badgers would win easily 70-3. Anyway, with 2 big games coming up for Wisconsin, would they keep their natty hopes alive and win both of these games?
Ball game at tailback. White, nice hole. White off the right side, 30. Pushed out of bounds. Clay's back in, so I'm guessing run. Clay, touchdown. In his choice of schools and their ability to change coaching staffs as soon as he signs. Lewis to the outside, 30, 25, 20. For 4 on this drive is 3. They go with a ground game. Marshall into the... Blocked. To give him a chance. Our hats off to them. Keyshawn Martin with the line drive punt at the 25. Martin. He's gone. Keyshawn. Against the ground. Cousins pump fake, then throws. Touchdown. A touchdown. If not, you give Wisconsin a chance. Play action. Touchdown. Team right here. Tolzien with a complete pass, but that's going to be...
Wisconsin would split the games versus the Devils and the Spartans, winning a close one against Arizona State 20-19. Wisconsin would actually give up a late touchdown to the Devils, but the Badgers special teams would come up with a huge block, and from there Wisconsin would lean on their elite run game to run out the rest of the clock. As mentioned before, there was a game in between the Arizona State and Michigan State matchup against FCS school Austin Peay, but the Badgers would easily win 70-3. However, Michigan State would seem to have the Badgers' number, as they would dominate Wisconsin the whole game, converting more first downs, having more yards, and ending the game with more time of possession. Obviously, Wisconsin would lose to the Spartans 34-24, dropping their record to 4-1 and their ranking in the latest polls to the 20th spot. The Badgers were not happy about their performance over the weekend and would take all their anger out against the Minnesota Golden Gophers, winning 41-23. Beating up on 1-4 Minnesota was cool and all, but Wisconsin's next game wouldn't be as easy, as they would be hosting the #1 team in the entire country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. But wait, that's not all. Right after their game with the Buckeyes, their next game would be against the 15th ranked Iowa State Hawkeyes, hosted at Kinnick Stadium, a place where ranked teams go to die. The Badgers already had 1 loss, so anything other than being perfect in these 2 games would result in Wisconsin being eliminated from BCS BCS Natty contention. The stakes were as high as they could be. Could Wisconsin prevail?
You are looking live at Camp Randall Stadium in Madison, Wisconsin for the marquee Big Ten matchup of the season. Tonight will be the first time Ohio State will have to deal with a truly intimidating environment. Underway. David Gilreath from the 3. 25, 30, 35, explodes midfield. A chance to return the opening kickoff for 6. He'll take it to the house. On 1st and 10 in the red zone. They come behind. Touchdown. Badgers go. And White, the freshman running back, flares out. Tolzien on the move. And wide open. And that's the young man who returned to kickoff. Over the top for Clay for his second touchdown of the night. At 15.
Keep it open!
Has plenty of time and throws an interception. Picked up by Sweat. And he had up at the top of your screen, and here comes Herron. Looking for daylight, end zone. Touchdown, Ohio. Make it 8 straight. Touchdown, Herron. Good rusher against these Buckeyes. Here comes White going end zone. Touchdown! Going down again, J.J. Watt.
Zone on their first drive, got stopped and had to settle for a field goal.
Wide open.
Tolzien after a great fake. John Clay, straight ahead, touchdown Wisconsin. They're scoring now a touchdown in 13 of the last 14 games. Stanzi trying to answer, the man is wide open. Caught! Darrell Jones. Wisconsin poised to reclaim the lead, and they do. They faked it to Robinson. Man open! Touchdown! Tolzien throws. Caught! Critically important now. 15th play of a memorable drive. 2nd and 2. Ball is the first down. Still fighting! Lunging for the goal line. They're going to mark him just short.
Out of there. Oh, that's 6.
Could be a touchdown.
That looked like 6. The original runner broke the plane for a touchdown. Clock operator, put 106 on the game clock.
Wisconsin would win both of these games, starting with the number 1 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. The Badgers would come out on top 31-18 in a game that was mostly dominated by Wisconsin, as they would start the game with the kickoff return for a touchdown and see themselves up 21-3 going into the second half. Ohio would slowly start to come back, bringing the score to 18-21 at one point, but Wisconsin would close out the fourth quarter, securing the huge win. The game versus Iowa would be a banger that the Badgers would win 31-30. Wisconsin would be down late in the game, but would have a huge clutch drive, scoring a touchdown with about a minute left in the game, clutching up the win against the 15th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes. After both of those wins against ranked opponents, Wisconsin's record would move to 7-1, and they would leap up in the polls to the ninth spot in the country. The Badgers were riding high off those 2 huge wins and would keep the momentum rolling, as they would easily defeat their next 2 opponents that stood in their way, winning big against Purdue 34-13, and get this, hanging 83 points on the Indiana Hoosiers, as they would win 83-20. That has to be one of the craziest scores I've ever seen. I literally can't believe the Wisconsin Badgers dropped 83 points on a team. Most college basketball teams can't even put up that many points. After the 2 easy wins against conference foes, Purdue and Indiana, Wisconsin would move up to the 7th spot in the country and would be sitting at 9-1 going into their last real test of the season against the 7-3 Michigan Wolverines. Now, while this might have been a down year for the Wolverines football program, coming into the Big House and pulling out a win against Michigan is never easy. Could Wisconsin keep their BCS Natty hopes alive by pulling out a huge road win against Big Blue? Long story short, yes, they would keep their natty hopes alive, as they would smack the Wolverines around 48-28 in a game that was dominated by Wisconsin the entire time. I was going to show the highlights of this game, but for some reason, no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find the highlights of this matchup. Sometimes when I go past the year like 2012, the highlights for most teams just seem to disappear, unless you're a huge school that was doing decent that year. Anyway, the Badgers were sitting at 10-1, and even though they put the beats on a pretty good Michigan football team, they wouldn't move up in the polls. Actually, they wouldn't move up at all, as they would still be ranked as the 7th best team in the country. All the Badgers could do was end their season strong, and that's exactly what they would do, as in their last last game of the season against the Northwestern Wildcats, they would put on a show, winning 70-23 and also clinching the Big Ten title. Now sitting at 11-1, even though Wisconsin would put together an amazing season with the win against the #1 team in the country, their loss early against Michigan State would come back to bite them, as they would finish 4th in the final BCS polls behind 3 undefeated teams, them being Auburn, Oregon, and TCU. Any other year, Wisconsin might have had a legit case to make the BCS Natty game, but because both the #1 and 2 teams in the country would finish the year undefeated, there literally was no way Wisconsin would be sniffing the Natty this year. Instead, they would get to face the 3rd-ranked TCU Horned Frogs in the Rose Bowl. The game versus TCU would be close, but the Badgers just couldn't get the job done, as they would finish the game with more yards, more first downs, and more time of possession, but would still lose 21-19, finishing the year with an 11-2 record. But if just a couple of things went different during this 2010 season, we could have seen the Badgers playing in the BCS National Championship game. Leaving the state of Wisconsin, we take a trip down to the A or Atlanta. Not to join Opium, but to take a look at a squad I'll admit I wasn't really on beat about. The 2009 Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Major shout out to Buddha4794. Well, at least I think that's how you pronounce it. Bro commented on one of my videos saying, I quote, "Please do a video on 2014 Georgia Tech." And while I won't be doing a video on the 2014 Yellow Jackets today, I feel like covering the 2009 Georgia Tech football team is close enough. This part of the video is only here because of his comment. As I said before, I wasn't really aware of this 2009 squad, but while looking at the 2014 team, I found out about this 2009 team, so thank you for that. Be sure to comment teams or things you want me to cover because I will. So where do we start with this 2009 Yellow Jacket squad? Well, coming into this year, I don't think it would be a stretch to say that this Georgia Tech squad had a serious chance to make a push for the BCS National Championship game. As coming into the season, the Yellow Jackets were ranked 15 in the AP polls, and most preseason predictions had this squad going either 10-2 or 11-1, and coming in 2nd in the ACC Coastal Division behind the 7th-ranked Virginia Tech Hokies. And I can see why this Tech squad had all this hype on it, because in the year before, they would end the regular season playing against 4 ranked opponents, them being the 15th-ranked Seminoles, 19th-ranked North Carolina, 23rd-ranked Miami, and finally the 11th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs. The Yellow Jackets would win 3 out of 4 of those games, only losing to the Tar Heels. I say all that to say that this Georgia Tech football team had a lot of momentum coming into the season. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at the key figures as part of this 2009 Tech squad. Leading the program at head coach in his 2nd year up to that point was Paul Johnson. And I do this every video, but Georgia Tech fans, where do you rank Coach Paul all time in your program? I'm assuming at #1 is Bobby Dodd, so let me know down below in the comments. Instant transitioning over to the quarterback position, we had Josh Nebbit, who would pass for 1,701 yards with 10 touchdowns. But remember, this is the late 2000s Yellow Jackets, so the starting quarterback would also rush for over 1,000 yards with 18 touchdowns. The actual running back on the team, Jonathan Dwyer, would rush for just shy of 1,400 yards with 14 touchdowns. And finally, moving over to the wide receiver position, no cap, I had no idea he was a part of this squad, but the late Demarius Thomas, rest in peace. He would lead the team with 1,154 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. Alright, so to open up the season, the 15th-ranked Yellow Jackets would have a quick tune-up game that they would easily win 37-17 against the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. After that, it was time to start ACC play, and Tech would start ACC play with 3 straight games against pretty decent opponents: Clemson, the 20th-ranked Miami Hurricanes, and in the stretch, a home game versus 22nd-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. The Yellow Jackets were being tested early. Could they survive this stretch of tough conference play, or would the Yellow Jackets fold, no poker, under the pressure of big-time expectations?
They do. Nesbitt keeps it on the edge in the pitch. Anthony Allen, the transfer from Louisville, down the sidelines. They can strike 7. He's also a punter, and they're going to pooch it down there. Georgia Tech was ready. And Tarrant is loose on the sidelines. Gerard Tarrant, 2 weeks in a row to the house. Set to try one. Blair is going to throw it. They got a fake, and they got Thomas wide open on the sidelines. Deep again, just in case. And a low driving kick. Good. On over the middle of the field. Freeze option. Nesbitt fires downfield to Thomas and has him. 6. Play action. Looking down the middle of the field for LaRon Johnson. And LaRon Bird, I should say. Play action. Harris rolls, throws to the end zone. Touchdown Epps. Harris over the middle. Touchdown.
Nesbitt calls his own number. He looks like he's in. Fire in back of him on 3rd down. Going to carry himself. Big block by Anthony Allen. Touchdown.
Georgia Tech would go 2-1 through this stretch of ACC play, winning against Clemson 30-27 in a matchup that saw Tech go up early, but Clemson would fight back, keeping the game close, but Tech would come up clutch in the fourth quarter, kicking the game-winning field goal with about a minute left on the clock. In their matchup versus the Hurricanes, the Yellow Jackets straight up laid an egg, as they would be manhandled by the Hurricanes, losing 33-17. I'm guessing the Jackets took that spanking personally, because they would take out their anger on the Tar Heels, winning 24-7. Now sitting at 3-1 and dropping all the way down to the 25th spot in the latest polls, Tech would have to get their season back on schedule, and really couldn't afford to lose any more games this season if they wanted to have a shot at the Natty. They would do exactly that in their next two games against Mississippi State and Florida State. Versus the Bulldogs, Georgia Tech would play a good all-around game, taking the lead early and not giving it up once they got it, as they would win 42-31 against Mississippi State. And against the Noles, Tech would be involved in a shootout, as both teams would swap the lead all game until Georgia Tech would officially come out on top, 49-44. 5-1 and ranked as the 19th best team in the country, Georgia Tech was coming up on their biggest game of the season so far against the 4th-ranked Virginia Tech Hokies. Georgia Tech fans, let me know if this matchup was one of the biggest games the Yellow Jackets have ever hosted. Anyway, the Hokies would be visiting Georgia Tech in the A. Could the Yellow Jackets pick up one of the biggest wins in program history, or would the lights just be shining way too bright for them?
Number 4, Virginia Tech takes on number 19, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, in a game that's been yardage that they've given up over the last couple of games. Georgia Tech winning the toss and deferring to the second half. Virginia Tech, meanwhile, will receive. And back deep, Dyrell Roberts and David Wilson for the Hokies. Keep in mind, special teams, one of the signatures of Frank Beamer's tenure here at Virginia Tech. There's Roberts, number 11. He already has one kickoff return for a touchdown this year. In the heart of Atlanta, right off I-75 and 85. Williams with the reception, made a nice move, and Ryan Williams 34 yards out. And Waldron is has been looking to pass for Thomas. Caught. Jump ball and 3rd and goal. Nesbitt. Touchdown. On 2nd and 5, Nesbitt keeps it. Quarterback lead, and Nesbitt inside the 10. Nesbitt. Touchdown. Interesting when you talk about the togetherness of that staff. Nesbitt up top for Thomas, and it's picked off. Inner defense. No panic in that defense. Made a play, and Ryan Williams trying to make a play. Ryan Williams, no panic. No one to stop him. Touchdown, Hogan.
Man, it's hard to get a look like you're getting the Josh Nesbitt run.
Nesbitt keeps it himself. Great toss to right. Touchdown. Tech. Nesbitt keeps it, and now on the toss, it's loose again. It's on the ground. Virginia Tech National Championship picture. Taylor trying to keep them there too. T-Mobile. Touchdown, Virginia Tech. Only 4th down territory for Georgia Tech. Nesbitt keeps it, and he's got the 1st down. He's thinking about 6. Nesbitt, no way to stop him. Touchdown. 1st and goal. Out of the backfield, Williams wide open. He's going to jog in for the score. Here it comes. They get the high bounce, and it's fielded cleanly by the DB, Gerard Tarrant.
Georgia Tech would win the game versus the 4th-ranked Virginia Tech Hokies 28-23. This matchup would start off slow, as going into the second half, Georgia Tech would only be leading 7-3. But once the 3rd quarter hit, the Yellow Jackets would extend the lead to 21-10. The Hokies would mount a little comeback attempt late, but Georgia Tech would hold them off, securing the dub. Tech was now sitting at 6-1, and after the huge win over the Hokies, the Yellow Jackets would move up in the polls to the 12th spot in the country. That massive win versus the Hokies gave this Georgia Tech squad a lot of confidence, and you could tell because they would roll past the next two teams that stood in their way, them being Virginia and Vanderbilt. Against Virginia, Georgia Tech would dominate, winning 34-9. And against the Vanderbilt Commodores, this matchup would be a little bit tougher, as at halftime the score would be deadlocked at 28 apiece, but once the second half hit, Georgia Tech would easily cruise to a victory over the Vanderbilt Commodores, winning 56-31. After those two wins, Tech would finally crack the top 10 for the first time this season. They must have somewhat let that get to their head, or maybe they were just looking ahead and not taking their next opponent, the 4-5 Wake Forest Demon Deacons, very seriously, as this game would be deadlocked at 24 at the end of the 4th quarter, requiring an extra quarter to decide the winner.
187 yards in the backfield, and Nesbitt hangs on to it. Nesbitt pulls it down, puts his head down.
They're giving him the sneak, though.
Nesbitt gets it. The 3. Nesbitt scores! Georgia Tech wins in overtime.
Wake Forest would give the Yellow Jackets a massive scare, and major shout out to the Tech coaching staff because that 4th and 1 in overtime took a lot of guts. And with the season on the line, the Jackets would convert the 4th and 1 and not too soon after would punch it into the end zone, securing the win in overtime over Wake Forest 30-27. Although Tech would pull out a close win against a below average opponent, because a lot of the other top teams this week would lose, the Yellow Jackets would see themselves moving up 3 spots in the polls to the 7th spot in the country. Georgia Tech would make sure not to play down to their competition in their next game versus the Duke Blue Devils, as they would easily win, dominating Duke 49-10. Now sitting at 10-1 going into rivalry week, Tech would be faced with their last test of the regular season, a game against the 6-5 Georgia Bulldogs. For all intents and purposes, Tech should win this game easily, right? Well, we all should know that during rivalry week, anything can happen, and the Bulldogs were itching for a chance to ruin their in-state rival Georgia Tech's magical season. Could the Yellow Jackets come out on top of their in-state rivals, or would their natty hopes be ruined in their last regular season game of the year?
Georgia with 8 plays, all of them runs, and here they come on the ground again with Sean Ely breaking tackles. Great move at the 15, inside the down to the field at midseason to call the plays. Dials up Caleb King, touchdown for another stop in the red zone to force a field goal try. Cox with time, runs out of it, throws, touchdown. 3rd down 3. Quick throw, Demarius Thomas uses the stiff arm. There he goes. They have an angle, but will they catch him? No! And Georgia keep the offense going with powerful football. There's Caleb King. He may go. Running away from the defense. Touchdown! Dwyer lunging. Touchdown! Routing the ball on that line of scrimmage. Nesbitt again. Touchdown. An upset win. Nesbitt, 4th straight pass. Has his man dropped.
Sadly, Tech would just be straight up outplayed by the Bulldogs. They were pretty much playing from behind the entire game. And even with Georgia dominating most of the game, the Yellow Jackets would still have a chance late to win the game, but would be stopped on 4th down, losing to the Bulldogs 30-24. Tech would bounce back in the ACC Championship game, defeating Clemson 39-34 on a late 4th quarter touchdown, bringing their record before bowl season to 11-2. Now, I'm just going to say this, even if Tech would have pulled off the win against Georgia, they wouldn't have made it to the Natty. And I only say that because the teams that were playing in the 2009 BCS National Championship game were both undefeated coming into the matchup, them being the 13-0 Texas Longhorns and the 13-0 Alabama Crimson Tide. Maybe if some chaos would have happened in the last couple of weeks of the season and Tech would have beat Georgia, maybe they could have snuck in, but that's all just amateur lore's headcanon. In reality, the Yellow Jackets would be playing in the Orange Bowl against the Iowa Hawkeyes. The game was pretty boring as Iowa would do their thing all game and win 24-14, but we're going to end this section on a positive note. Even though Tech failed to make it to the Natty, this season would still be one for the books, as the Yellow Jackets 2009 season produced the most wins in a single season up to that point since the year 1990. Leaving Atlanta, we head over to Stillwater, Oklahoma to cover a team that I'm sure you guys would destroy me in the comments if I didn't mention them, and at least one of these entries in my series of teams that you forgot almost made it to the BCS National Championship game. If you don't know what team I'm talking about, it's the 2011 Oklahoma State Cowboys. Probably one of the most infamous teams when it comes to squads that didn't make it to the BCS National Championship game. Alright, so coming into the season, the Big 12 media was high on this 2011 Polk squad, but I don't think they expected them to be a team legitimately competing for a natty. As in their 2011 Big 12 preseason predictions, they would have the Polks finishing 3rd in the Big 12 behind the Sooners and the Aggies. Despite being predicted to finish 3rd in the Big 12, the Polks would be ranked 9th to start the season. But before we jump into their first couple of games, let's take a look at some of the key figures a part of this 2011 Oklahoma State squad. Leading the program in his 6th year up to that point at head coach was Mike Gundy. And this is a little side tangent, but Mike Gundy is a great head coach in my opinion. I mean, what he did for this Oklahoma State program is just amazing. In his 20 years of coaching this program, they've had 10 9+ win seasons. Get this, before he started coaching, the Pokes in their entire history have only had 3 10-win seasons. And since he joined the program, he's had 7. Alright, I'm done with that little rant. Over at quarterback, the man running this high-flying offense, which averaged 48.7 points per game, which was best for 2nd in the nation, was the 28-year-old Brandon Whedon, who would toss the pill around for 4,727 yards with 37 touchdowns. And just imagine if he played in today's college game. Bro could have transferred a bunch and been like 35 playing college football. Comment down below if college football needs a 30-year-old plus quarterback tossing the pigskin around. Moving over to the halfback position, the team leader was Joseph Randall, who would rush for just over 1,200 yards with, I had to double check this number, but 24 touchdowns. Okay, I wasn't familiar with your game. I apologize. And finally, the biggest name on this team, the 2-time Biletnikoff winner, wide receiver Justin Blackmon, who would torch opposing defenses, recording just over 1,500 yards with 18 touchdowns. So to start off the 2011 season, the 9th-ranked Pokes would open up with 3 tune-up games before things would get serious. In those 3 tune-up games, the Cowboys would go to work, blowing out Louisiana 61-34, Arizona 37-14, and finally to end the 3-game stretch of tune-up games, a 59-33 win against Tulsa. Now sitting at 3-0 and moving up a couple of spots in the AP polls to the 7th spot. Remember like 30 seconds ago when I said things were about to get serious for this Oklahoma State Cowboys squad? Well, this is that part, as the Pokes were about to embark on a stretch of conference play on the road at the 8th-ranked Aggies, a game against Kansas, and finally to end this stretch, a game home on the road versus the 22nd ranked Texas Longhorns. Could the Pokes come out of this stretch undefeated?
Receivers, 3 to the left of Ryan Tannehill, a senior from Big Spring, Texas, who takes off running right up the middle. Touchdown, Texas A&M. 5 rushes for 58 yards. To the end zone, caught, touchdown, Jeff. Impressive drive by the Cowboys, and it ends with a touchdown. Brandon Whedon throws to the end zone, and it is. A&M defense has to be gassed. They've been on the field virtually the entire quarter. Whedon back of the end zone, caught.
Let's see if they don't run out of gas. Blackman's got to be careful. 5 seconds goes a lot slower than you think.
They're going to take a safety.
Take a safety.
On the last play of the game.
End of the game. That was
8 games. They hit big ones every week. And a touchdown for Joseph. The line of scrimmage for the Texas offense. Ash gave it to Malcolm Brown. Touchdown. Long count by Whedon. They do come after. He throws quickly. Caught by Blackman. Touchdown. Line. Final minute of the first half. They try Smith again, right through the defense and into the end zone. Touchdown. 28-10 in the blink of an eye. Quinn Sharp kicks off. And Whitaker will try to answer for Texas. And here he comes. Fozzie Whitaker. The kicker has the angle. Quinn Sharp, can he do it? No! Unbelievable. They're going to need some help. Turnovers, calls that go their way. Mistakes by Oklahoma State. There's Malcolm Brown. Did he stay in bounds? Yes, he. Jeremy Smith bursts through again. Will they catch him? No, they will not. Jeremy Smith, a touchdown, 74 yards.
The Pokes would go 3-0 through this stretch of conference play, but it wasn't all easy wins. As in their first game of the streak on the road at Texas A&M, the Cowboys would see themselves down big going into halftime as they would be down 20-3 to the Aggies. But when they came out of the locker room and started the second half of the game, the Pokes would dominate the rest of the game, scoring 27 straight points before the Aggies would finally respond. But it would be a little too late, as the Pokes would seal the win against the 8th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies 30-29. Their next 2 games after the matchup with the Aggies would be a lot easier, as they would boat race the Kansas Jayhawks 70-28, and against the Texas Longhorns, although the final score was 38-26, the game wasn't really that close, as the Pokes would be up pretty much the entire game playing on cruise control. Now sitting at 6-0 and currently ranked as the 4th best team in the country, the Pokes were cruising through the 2011 season and would keep cruising, as against their next 2 Big 12 opponents they would dominate them as well, winning 45-24 on the road at Missouri and coming back home the following week and defeating Baylor 59-24. Oklahoma State was now sitting at 8-0 and was currently ranked as the 3rd best team in the country, going into their last real test of the season before their game against Oklahoma at the end of the year. Who were they matching up against? Well, Optimus Klein and the 7-1 14th ranked Kansas State Wildcats. This game would be huge for the Pokes, as if they could pull off the win, they'd be sitting pretty headed into the tail end of the 2011 college football season.
Live at a sold-out Boone Pickens Stadium, where the Oklahoma State Cowboys are ready to give the BCS voters a reason for why the Cowboys belong in the BCS title game. Tonight in prime time, Oklahoma State hosts a strong Kansas State Wildcat team.
Up close to the box, and there's that read option. Klein fumbles the ball. Here they go.
Fumble
Just off to the left in this full house set. This is power to the left, and here comes Randall in that direction.
end zone, touchdown.
Coverage on him. Quick throw to him because it was soft. Strength, touchdown. And they're going to bring an end around. Double reverse Lockett. Klein is out blocking. Lockett to the 50. Lockett breaks free to the 30. Touchback to the 20. And Lockett thinks he can take advantage of here. He sprints outside. Touchdown. Klein with that quick pitch. Slip screen outside. Down here in the red zone. Here he comes. Klein battling. Touchdown. This return for Justin. Picked off. Intercepted. Headed for the end zone. Whedon after him. And it's going to be an Allen Chapman touchdown. Change up. Now we're going to see him throw it. Comes to the sideline. Deflected. Intercepted on the deflection. Another turnover. Thomas, the linebacker. He got a convoy down the sideline. He's up with a big turnover. Wildcats it down to the last one. Whedon again firing touchdown. Do it and able to do it. second and goal. Drops it off, Lockett, touchdown. Is 4th and 7. Klein dances away. He's got daylight, first down. Option, Klein in zone. And overs that he has had. He still had a pretty solid night in this game. Wide open, there's Blackman. Blackman dancing for the end zone. Gave one up. Lockett driven back to the goal line. 15-20. Looking for a seam on that left side. And he's at the 40. Breaks free. Lockett running for the end zone. Tripped up. They got 2 downs to make this. He'll keep it on 30. He's got the first, breaks free, end zone, touchdown. And let's see if Wheaton can strike again. Back, middle, got it. Complete. 3rd down and 1. And they got it. Randall breaks free, end zone. Oklahoma State ends the state down 7. Klein gonna fire to the corner. Caught out of. Klein rolls to the right. Fires high and incomplete, and Oklahoma State will survive a scare.
The Pokes would come out on top of the 14th ranked Kansas State Wildcats 52-45 in a banger of a game that was back and forth the entire time. Both of these offenses came to play. They would put up 1,000 plus yards, and even though the Pokes lost a turnover battle, turning it over 4 times and having the ball for a whole 7 minutes less than the Wildcats, they would still come out on top, pulling out a humongous resume building win. Now sitting at 9-0 and moving up in the rankings to the 2nd spot in the latest polls, their highest ranking in program history, the Pokes were oozing with aura, and it was pretty obvious as in their next game on the road at Texas Tech, Oklahoma State would dominate Tech 66-6. And looking at that score is pretty ominous. It makes me wonder if Alabama and LSU were doing voodoo or something. Anyway, Oklahoma State would make Texas Tech look like a JV football team as they would total 637 yards on the day. And shout out to the Brett Favre of college football minus the whole fraud stuff, Brandon Weeden. Homeboy went 31 for 37 with 423 yards and 5 touchdowns. A straight up magnificent performance. 10-0 and still ranked 2nd in the country, Oklahoma State had one real test left on their schedule, a game versus their in-state rivals, the 14th ranked Sooners. If they could win that game, they'd be a lock to make the Natty and make college football history. But before that big rivalry game, there was a little road game against the 5-4 Iowa State Cyclones, standing between them and Bedlam. If the Pokes could just put the fries in the bag and do their job, then this game against the average Cyclones would be a breeze, right?
Quarterback. Oh, this is going to be a pick 6. How about it, Sean Lewis?
It's Oklahoma State. Takes a shot to the end zone, and they come up with it. Brandon Weeden, what a throw and catch for Iowa State against one of the best players in the country. 2nd and 10, and this is a strike to Moore again, and Moore keeps his footing and goes. And they keep it with James White, and James White to the outside, and James White inside the 10. Touchdown, Cyclone! 2nd and 8. Here's Joseph Randall, picks up a block and has a first down. Still on his feet and forces his way to the 25 where the ball comes loose and on. And they're going to win, but something special is in the air here and to the end zone. 151 yards. This is the running quarterback with 351 yards. Reverses field and wide open is White. Touchdown, Cyclone! To the end zone. Touchdown. Weeden to start the 2nd overtime. Ball's in the air, and it is intercepted by Terry. Woody. Touchdown, they did it!
Sadly, the Pokes would be upset 37-31 in a game that honestly the Pokes just played sloppy in, as they turned the ball over 5 times, and not to mention they were up by 17 points at one point in the 3rd quarter, but just couldn't stop Iowa State from coming back and tying the game. And what really sealed the deal for this game was the pick Brandon Weeden threw in double overtime. After the tough loss, the Pokes would drop in the polls only 1 spot, now being ranked as the 3rd best team in the country, and would bounce back against their in-state rivals, defeating the Sooners 44-10. The Pokes were now 11-1, and this is where we get into the what-ifs, because for some reason that many college football fans still don't understand to this day, Oklahoma State would be left out of the BCS National Championship game and would finish the season ranked 3rd behind LSU and Alabama. Now, I'm just going to give my thoughts and y'all can chime in down below in the comments, but when comparing both teams in their schedules, the Pokes had the 3rd best strength of schedule compared to Alabama's 17th rated strength of schedule. And only one of the teams Alabama beat throughout the season ended the year ranked, them being the Arkansas Razorbacks. While on the other hand, the Pokes had 3 of the teams they beat finish the year ranked. I say all that to say, man, I wish the Cowboys would have made it to the Natty. But instead they would get the next best thing, I guess, a matchup in the Fiesta Bowl against Stanford that they would win 41-38 in overtime, finishing their 2011 season 12-1. Anyway, that's just gonna about do it for this video, but be sure to comment teams or players you want me to cover, and be sure to let me know how you feel about the 2011 football season as a whole. I'm out.